Manish, Mehta here, New York Daily News, NFL columnist, Jets insider, here on Big Board Sports. Hey, Manish, Roger Weiland in Albany, thanks for a few minutes.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it. I know you're crazy busy. What's the latest with Eric Decker?
Well, he's going to undergo season-ending surgery. I don't think it's too much of a surprise. I think that was where it was headed. You kind of see the writing on the wall a couple weeks ago, but the Jets made it official today, so he's out for the year, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to have to figure out a way to find another solid second option.
Yeah, that was my question. Manish, how much depth do they have at that position? We know about Brandon Marshall, but now you lose Decker. How big of a loss is that, and who do they turn to next?
Well, Quincy Enum was the guy who had been filling in, and he's done a nice job. He plays obviously a different role in the offense than Decker did, but I think there's a comfort level building between Enumwa and Fitzpatrick, so he would be the obvious guy. Some of these other rookies have to step up. Robbie Anderson has gotten increased playing time. Jalen Marshall, who has a torn labrum, or not a torn labrum, but a labrum issue as well, I think is close to returning. Maybe he returns this Monday night in Arizona. Maybe it's another week or so. But these young guys have to make some kind of valuable contribution. And the other guy is Austin Seferian-Jenkins, the tight end, who they just claimed off of waivers from Tampa. He played a little bit the other day in Pittsburgh. So they're going to have to piece this together, because I don't think there's going to be any one person who's going to be able to duplicate the production that Decker gave them.
Manish, the Jets are 1-4, and knowing what we knew about the early schedule coming in, I mean, what is your thoughts here about a 1-4 team? Is this not anywhere near what you expected, right?
No, it's not, and you're right. When people looked at the schedule, they looked at this first 6-game stretch. 5 of those 6 games were against playoff teams from a year ago. They've played 4 of those playoff teams from a year ago to this point and have lost all 4. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I firmly believed from the jump that they needed to come out of this 6-game stretch at 3-3 at worst. Because if they were 3-3, when you looked at the remaining schedule, not a cupcake schedule, but clearly it lightened up. And at 3-3, I thought they would have been well positioned to make some sort of playoff run, a wild card run in all likelihood, of course. At 2-4 at best now, I think it's not going to be good enough. If you look at the math, teams that start off 1-4 have only made the playoffs 6% of the time in the current playoff format, which dates back to 1990. So it doesn't bode well for them. It's not to say that it can't happen. You saw Kansas City go on a run last year, so it's certainly possible. It's just not likely. And by the way, when they come back from that Arizona game, they have Baltimore at home, which isn't an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. So, look, I think we knew that there was a possibility that they could get buried early on, and certainly if they don't win against the Cardinals on Monday night at 1-5, I think at that point, of course, it's over, because when you look at what they have to get to, and they have to get to at least 10 games, 10 wins, the margin of error is so small at this point.
Manish, if they lose a couple of more games here and clearly are just done, what happens with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback? Would be any consideration to move somebody else in there like a Geno Smith?
Well, I don't think Geno Smith's part of their plans. He's in the final year of his rookie contract. He's not coming back. They didn't have a real belief in Geno Smith to be anything more than a solid backup. If they did, they wouldn't have pursued Ryan Fitzpatrick for all those months in the offseason to make sure that he got back. So, their behavior in the offseason told you everything you needed to know about how they felt about Geno Smith. So I think that, look, if they get eliminated from postseason contention, and in their minds, that's not going to happen until they get their 8th loss. Because even at 9-7, if you're a team, you can't really give up hope. It's a sliver of hope, but you still got to hold on to that until you get to that 8th loss. Because once you get to the 8th loss, it's over, of course. And I think that if the Jets got to that point, they would probably turn to Bryce Petty to see what they have in him, because they need to figure out what their quarterback situation is going to be in 2017 and beyond. Is it going to be Bryce Petty competing for a job with a veteran that they bring in? Is it going to be Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg competing with a veteran that they bring in? They really need to see Bryce Petty in real game action. Now, you saw some preseason flashes from him, and he's clearly, still rehabbing from the shoulder injury that he got in the preseason. But I think, just projecting a month and a half down the road, if the Jets are out of it, I think that they would turn to Bryce Petty well before they would even think about playing Geno Smith.
We are talking with Manish Mehta here, New York Daily News, NFL columnist, Jets insider for NBC Sports. How about your thoughts on the head coach here, Todd Bowles, and how he has handled this year thus far?
Well, it hasn't been good. He's 1-4. He doesn't shy away from that. I spoke to him at length about it last week, and he takes ownership of it, and you have to commend him for that. But the numbers are what they are. They are 11-10 as a football team under Todd Bowles. And he did a lot of good things last year. I don't think it's fair to discount the stuff that he did last year, bringing a sense of calm and maturity to the organization at a time that they probably needed it. And that's no slight on Rex Ryan, because I've always been a big Rex Ryan believer. I think he kind of got shafted toward the end of his tenure with the Jets, but it was probably time to make a change and to move on. So I think that Bowles did a lot of good things last year. Now, that being said, he hasn't done a good job to this point, and obviously a lot of that falls on the execution and it falls on the players because they're most responsible. But just looking at this most recent game, I thought that he made some curious decisions, coaching decisions, specifically in the second half, that really shouldn't be glossed over, because I think they were important decisions, and I think they contributed to the loss.
Hey, Zach By joining Roger here in studio this morning. You just mentioned the names Rex Ryan, and I remember some classic exchanges with you two in those hilarious years and productive years. But I have to ask you, what do you make of him and the way that he's sort of reclamated the Bills?
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable story. They're undefeated, 3-0 since firing Greg Roman and having Anthony Lynn, who was one of Rex's confidants with the Jets, take over. I think what they've done is streamline their offense, and a lot of that is out of necessity because Sammy Watkins is no longer a part of the equation. And when you look at that offense, clearly LaShawn McCoy is their lone difference maker, and they're highlighting him, they're featuring him. And on the other side of the ball, it's amazing. They don't really have that many household names, very many household names at all, frankly, on that side of the ball. And you've got a couple no-name guys who are leading the league in tackles and sacks. And I think that's a credit to Rex's acumen as a defensive coach. And they're right in the mix. It's early. It's only week 5. But if they play like this, they're going to be in the wild card mix for the next 2.5 months. And that's certainly a credit to Rex. But I do think that a guy like Anthony Lynn, who is paid his dues, he's been in the league for a long time. He interviewed for some OC jobs in the past. Getting his opportunity, like this, is probably not how he wanted to do it, but he's done a terrific job to this point, and it's only 3 games, but their arrow is clearly pointing up in Buffalo.
Manish, can you see the Jets turning this around at 1-4?
I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, certainly they have to win against Arizona. If they lose against Arizona, it's a wrap. It's over. It's 1-5, and I'm sorry, they're not going to go 9-1 over the final 10 games to make the playoffs, knowing that they've got 2 games against the Patriots still left. They've got a game against the Colts, a game against the Ravens. They don't have any cupcakes other than Cleveland, and that's a road game, so maybe that's not even a cupcake. So I think they need to win this game. At that point, they'll be 2-4, and I'm going to stick by and say that 2-4 after the first 6 isn't good enough to make the playoffs. I think they might win a few games in the middle portion of the season and make it close, but just fall short. Like I said before, they need to be 3-3 after the 6-game stretch, and anything short of that, in my mind, isn't good enough to make the playoffs.
Agreed. And let me just throw this, because I need to cover the entire NFL, not just the Jets, but what about this Giants team at 2-3 right now? Do you hold out any hope, if you're a Giants fan, that they can win at home against the Ravens this week and get going in the right direction?
Well, I don't know. This defense is not as good as I thought it might be. It looked early on in that first week that maybe all that money that they spent was well worth it, but clearly they've got issues on the back end. And can they turn around? Sure. And look, they've lost some games against some quality opponents here. Green Bay and Minnesota are 2 of the best in the NFC. So it's not like they're losing to teams that they should dominate and should win. They really blew that Washington game. There was a special teams gaffe. There was Eli Manning making some old school Eli Manning mistakes when he didn't need to. But do I think they can turn around? Sure. I think they're in a much better position than the Jets are. Let's put it that way.
Hey, Manish, thanks. I know a lot going on here this morning with the Eric Decker story and what have you. We appreciate you getting back to us here on Big Board Sports, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank Manish. Manish Mehta, NFL columnist, New York Daily News. Eric Decker, surgery done for the year. Totally agree with him. If they don't win Monday night in Arizona, Jets fans can forget about this season.